Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Board of Health meeting for September 15th, 2020. This agenda is subject to change and include those items reasonably anticipated by the chair to be discussed at the meeting. Not all agenda items may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. And as everybody can tell, but our meeting is being recorded and televised on our local WACA-TV channel. Citizen participation, Mark.
Okay, Mark Tassoni, how was your day? Okay. I just want to say I talked to Ed already about COVID. He's going to talk on later. Okay. And I want to ask Mark real quickly, Mr. Orem, is you seem so humbly abode and peace of mind right now. I got to bother you with a question.
You have to go through the chair.
I know.
Sure okay.
Mark, is it something that we're going to discuss on the agenda?
No.
Okay. What's the question, Mark?
How is our area for Triple E? That's my question. That's it.
All right. We do have Triple E and West Nile virus on the agenda, so why don't you hang tight, because we're actually going to have Mark's going to do a report on the whole subject. Thanks, Mark. And then a question from Mark and Laura. Donna Walsh is attending the meeting. Should we wait for her, or should we move? I don't.
She did say she'd be here.
Oh, unless she mistook a meeting at 7 o'clock or something.
I sent her the agenda.
Yeah,
I'll text her. Thank
you.
Okay, thanks, Ed. So Susan, if you'll just hang tight for just a minute, we'll just see if Dawn is going to be attending. She might be just running a minute late. Sorry, dogs.
You want to take the next topic and come back to this?
Sorry, I was just unmuting my dogs barking.
Oh, that's fine.
Dawn is just getting on now. Just give her a minute, she said.
Good. Thank you, Ed.
I think maybe I'll use this brief moment of blank time to publicly thank Alan McIntosh for his assistance in helping to communicate with the folks at Pizza Bella. I think that was going above and beyond the call of duty, and I thought it was a very generous gesture on his part, and I think that he should be publicly thanked.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, I apologize. I do have barking dogs in the background, but Dawn, I'm sure, will be coming on any minute. Let's get started. So for 6:05, there's like a catastrophe. Ed, I'm surprised you're not walking by my house. They're barking. Sorry. Oh, goodness. You can't make this live stuff up.
I think they know Don is coming.
That might be okay.
Can we do the COVID updates?
Hi, Ron.
Hi.
Hey, Ron.
Sorry, everybody.
That's all right.
A little trouble logging in.
You got to use the medical emergency a little more often, Ron.
All right, I apologize again.
Yeah.
Ron, we started already. We're gonna have the first item on the agenda is for 19 Buckley Ave. We have Susan with us, who is the property owner. She's looking for a waiver from our animal regulations, section 6.21. I know Laura sent it out to everybody. The regulations are that any structure that houses the chickens would need to be 25 feet from the dwelling. I did go over and meet Susan today. We did a site walk of her property because I wanted to get a visual. I I learned a lot about chickens. They're because they're not just chickens, they're her very close friends that are housing, well, you know, she wants to house there. So it was very interesting. Laura provided the plan that Susan gave us of the house. When I went out there today, just I'll let Susan, you pop in here in a minute. I just was going to say is that the drawing, of course, is accurate. But when I went out there, it's just a little, actually better than that it looks on paper. So with that said, Susan, if you want to just introduce yourself and let everybody know what you're looking to do.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Susan Pereno from 19 Buckley Ave. And I would like to keep chickens, only like 6 at the most. The coop is rather small. And the coop is surrounded by a greenhouse. So the problem is that when I was, constructing this structure, I failed to, look at the regulations for the town. I'm very good at keeping animals and keeping them warm and safe and cozy. And I'm a former research scientist, so I have a background, believe it or not, in virology. So I construct recombinant viruses to help people for medicine. But I just didn't look up, the 25-foot regulation. So may I share my screen? I have just a few slides.
Yep.
Okay. Host disabled attendee screen sharing. Oh, really?
Let me
Can
just
the host
say,
enable screen sharing just for a minute?
yep, and all right. Does anybody know? As I thought it would be under Susan's name, but I don't see. Chris, I know you're better than with this than a.
Be the chairman's host that would do it.
Yeah,
And the host
I am.
right. Because I have just a PowerPoint, just a few slides to show you. I can certainly print them out. It might take a minute, but.
So Susan, is this a new construction from last year to this year? I don't recall this being on. No, you've had this for a while?
Yes, I have. Yes.
Oh, okay. So you've had to ask.
I haven't had chickens in like 3 years, so it's been sitting idle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got you.
Yeah.
Have there been any complaints with the neighbors?
Oh, no, that's part of my presentation.
Mhm.
No,
Diane, try
no
right-clicking
complaint.
on her name on the participant list.
That's what I thought too. It says, do I have to make her co-host?
Did you click on the share
That would
screen?
work if you made her
I was
co-host.
just
You
gonna
could do
say,
that.
Susan, I made you co-host. Welcome to the board.
Okay.
You should be able to do it now.
Okay, let's try it.
One thing for clarification also, when I went to the property today, I wanted to see it for myself, is I was under the understanding also that there was a distance to the property line, but it's actually not. It's a distance to the house. So again, we require any structure for keeping of animals to be 25 feet off the house. There you go. Okay.
So here's a
Right.
picture of that. That's right.
Yep.
So it's nestled. Let me just move you guys. Sorry. It's nestled, in the backyard, in between like an L shape of the back of the house, and then the deck protrudes out towards you. And it so the wooden coop is inside this greenhouse, and the greenhouse is covered with a canopy for summer because otherwise we don't want cooked chickens. It keeps them
Fried chicken, right?
fried chicken. Yes. So no, we don't eat our chickens. No, we have the eggs, we don't eat them. So these were my pets. So that's what it looks like. So yes, it's close to the house, 7-point-something inches. And then the greenhouse, and then I think the coop is a few inches off the greenhouse wall, but it's contained. So if you're concerned about noise, it doesn't exist. When they're in the greenhouse, they coo, and these very chickens, they're hens. I don't have roosters at all. So no, never roosters. So 0 complaints. And there's no smell, and there's no poop because I clean it up. I clean it weekly. And just like a litter box, I do clean the poop whenever I see any. And I have more slides to show you. So there's a wrought iron gating around it for predators or whatnot.
Just while you're there, Susan, also, again, just because I was there, is to the left side is actually how you enter. And yep, so on the left-hand side is how you actually enter, not through the deck or the back of the house.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to walk all the way around, and here's the side yard. There's further side yard, further on, but there's a chair here. So it's in front of the gate. There's a little table that I used to put against the door just in case some predator wants to get in, but you can't. And so, yeah, the door is on the left side of the greenhouse. This is actually what the side door looks like. So again, when you enter the deck, and it's actually quite nice in there. There's the chickens that I had. They're special purebred chickens. So these aren't just run-of-the-mill things. I care about them, and we take very good care of them. And it's clean, very clean. And so are the chickens. I have a little tub, and I bring it outside with warm soapy water, and they do have baths because we hold them. And I don't like chicken feces at all. And I know firsthand, from my training, what viruses can do. So we know all about it. And as far as complaints, absolutely not, because usually the neighborhood kids come and they're like, we want to hold the chickens, and they babysit the chickens. They check to see if they're okay, and they refill water and food. So these are the Landry children, not mine, holding Crystal and Ginger. And this is what it looks like in winter. So the reason it's near the house is because I had a custom electrical outlet put in to keep them warm. There's a platform that they stand on and preen in winter, keeps their little toes warm. Here they are, you can see the snow up the sides, like 1.5 feet of snow, but inside they're warm. The water is plugged in. It's a warmed heater, so the water never freezes. And yeah, I feed them in bowls. And this is Ginger, our champion layer, and these are the eggs we get. So they're small chickens. They're not big size chickens. They're extra small, called bantams, and they make extra small eggs. You need about 6 of them for a 1-person omelet, but that's okay. This is just our enjoyment outside. And again, they're fluffy, they're clean. They even sometimes make it onto a Christmas card. So these are not, just run-of-the-mill chickens. They're rather expensive, and I take very good care of them, like all my pets. So I would hope that you wouldn't make me, please move my whole coop structure, because it's very heavy, and it's meant to be a permanent structure. I just didn't know. So I'll stop sharing my screen now.
By the way, question for Mark.
I was just going to say, I just want to give hi Donna. I wanted to just again, with meeting Susan today, I got educated myself, because I'm not educated on chickens. But one thing Susan was explaining to me also is that she buys her chickens from a local breeder, because I know Donna's concern is disease. And also Susan explained to me that she does vaccinate her chickens. So obviously they're more of a, they're more of a pet, but they are a pet.
Yeah, they go to the vet. I tried to find that picture. I couldn't quite find it. I didn't have enough time, but they get vaccinated for Marek's disease, which is highly contagious among chickens. So most of the breeders already vaccinate them. It depends on where you buy them. And they give samples to be tested routinely, these breeders, so they know that that's not Marek's disease in their flocks. So I get, stock from either vaccinated chickens, or I vaccinate my chickens very early. So Marek's disease is like a neoplastic disease. It causes cancer, both T-cell lymphomas and tumors, solid tumors. And so it's very preventable. It's highly preventable. Once you get that vaccination, you're good to go. I've never heard of anybody having a chicken that got sick with the vaccination. Never.
Okay, we'll go in order. Chris, do you have any, or Donna, do you want to say anything first? You want to have the board ask questions? Or?
Hi.
Hi.
Just let me know if you have any questions.
Okay.
The first one I have would be to get some insight as to why there is a rule for 25 feet. I think if we had a better idea as to what the rationale of that rule is, it would be easier for us to make a decision.
Correct.
Thank you, Chris, for making that easy.
Right. I was going to ask the same thing. So.
Yeah, so Mark
Yeah.
or Donna, whoever knows that.
My belief, and I did not make the bylaw, I believe Rudolph was involved in that, but my belief is that they have the 25-foot setback because chickens can carry salmonella, there's diseases, they can attract vermin, also rabies vectors such as raccoons, foxes, things that would consume them. And that's got to be the only reason that I can think of why they would have a 25-foot setback. It's just.
Okay, so the way I see it, it's to protect the family carrying or housing the chickens.
Correct. I believe so.
And I would have to agree with Donna.
The first feedback I would have for that, if that's the case and the rest of the board would consider a waiver to this rule, that I would think that as long as there isn't a situation where the town or the board could be liable for waiving that if something were to get sick, perhaps having an official waiver of liability that the family would sign as a contingency to the waiver might be something to consider.
My only concern with that, and again, I'm learning some of the stuff as I go, is that the 25-foot, I'm assuming it's just so you're not attracting things to your private home. But if I'm just going to use this as an example, Susan, because you're here, is if her chickens were 25 feet from the house, and let's just say she got salmonella from the chickens, it's no different from it being attached to her house versus 25 feet out. So that might be something we should review. Because when I looked at it, I thought it was more appropriate that it was closer, like where it is versus in the middle of the yard, because you have four sides that you're going to get vermin or things that come towards it versus the way that it's structured right now. In general, I would say it's probably 1.5 sides. I mean, it's in general, most of the sides are not exposed. So that's just my opinion. Judy?
It looks like Mark was on the committee to write these. I'd like to know his opinion on this request.
Back in the day, and it was a while back, we looked at other towns to see what they had for regulations. And in my belief, I think Donna explained it perfectly. The whole purpose is not to have people having their animals close to their homes to prevent vermin from getting in their homes, odors. And I think that was the main reason, as well as you mentioned, possibly rabid raccoons. We can have that issue. I think it's a matter of who's taking care of the process. I believe Susan has given a great demonstration on the actual situation at her location. And Diane and I have talked already that my recommendation would be for a waiver for 6 months with Donna going back to inspect. And then if everything still is okay, as shown tonight, then go to a routine yearly inspection.
Inspection wise, I thought there was some kind of a fallback on to do the inspection next year. Isn't that right?
That is correct. Through the state.
Yeah.
So inside stables, this is an outside coop that could be checked from the outside.
Okay. The other question is
animal. Oh no, excuse me, but KG is right. Is the animal inspections are not going to be done until next year. I don't want to break all rules, but just because I was out there and I met Susan, I have no problem going out if it's something that, somebody needs to just go by and take a peek at it.
Right. I can do that as well.
Okay, I just want to put you on, yeah.
I have a couple of questions for Susan before she gets in. One is, do you have a window or a door facing the coop right now?
I have a window facing the coop.
Is there a way that either a way that you can put a plexiglass or something and then shut that down so that nothing comes inside?
Yeah.
Does it affect your living by any means?
No.
He's talking about to your home.
The greenhouse is actually a second barrier, so there's the coop.
I understand, but they
Yeah,
they don't consider greenhouse as a barrier breaker. So
sure.
something that possibly that could come to your house is one of the gateways, windows, or doors. And I don't expect you to close the door, but the windows can be closed with plexiglass so that it's not
So
blowing anything
I'm-
inside.
I'm not good with Zoom meetings, but I can tell you, let's see if you can see it. I took this picture today.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so the outside of I'll call it the canopy, then there's air conditioning units and then her windows of her house. Because you're concerned about anything getting into her home. Is that what you're referring to?
Correct. That's why I was wondering.
I mean, mammals or like a bacteria?
No, whatever that comes through the air.
Oh, okay. Right.
Something
So,
that affects you because of this coop. Maybe smell or whatever that comes through. You don't want to have that. That's what the purpose is 25 feet.
Yes.
So if you can block it by other means, then that's a positive side for what we want to do.
Right. So I had a Great Dane, by the way, and dogs defecate in the backyard. And I'm telling you right now, that dog and the flies were so much worse, even though we scooped, like just having to scoop from the grass, a lot more problems. I don't have a dog anymore because they have, they have rabies, they have bacterial, they have roundworm, they have all kinds of, things. I think chickens only have like 3 things: salmonella and like campylobacteria and some kind of chicken influenza virus. So there's no human viruses that I know that are going to come from a domesticated chicken. Wildlife, yes. Wildlife, yes, but not that I know of a domesticated chicken, but I could be wrong.
To Susan's point, I think that, we have the same, every pet owner has the same responsibilities as being a pet owner. And I think that's really on her and the family. I think in this particular case, my personal biggest concern for us as a board, and maybe Mark or Donna can shed a little insight to this as well, is going back to the point where if we do grant a waiver and there is a situation where Susan or someone in her family gets sick because the end result was that this should have been further away from the house, is there any liability on the town if we didn't hold to that bylaw? If there isn't any at all, then I don't think that we have to worry about them signing a waiver. But if there is, then I would want their family to sign a waiver releasing the town of any liability in that particular instance. But other than that,
to my knowledge, elected officials don't bear any liability, or the town doesn't, if their decision is based on the experts in the field recommendation. So Mark and Donna, if they recommend it should be done, or it can be done, then we don't have any liability because we rely upon their recommendations.
Yeah, so people can get sick in chickens. I mean, when you're thinking about it, like when they're even if they're 25 feet away, like, you know what I'm saying? I understand the concern, but you just have to keep it clean. And in terms of my family, it's just me. My daughter is home from college because of the pandemic, but it's just me. If that makes a difference. There's no young kids and the other kids, the pictures I showed you, they're kind of grown up. And yeah, so it's not like a big family around the chickens all the time, just so you know.
What I would suggest is, I think Chris makes a good point, is that if the board so wishes to grant a waiver, they should grant it with the situation being that the liability goes to the applicant if anything does happen due to the requested waiver.
Judy's.
Sorry, Judy, I know you have your hand up. Go ahead, Judy, you have a question?
I'd like to make a motion.
I would love to hear it. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to grant a temporary 6-month permit pending a reinspection. I'd also, refer to this, the guidelines that were given to us that I've just read for the first time today. And I'm sure you have I don't know if you call it manure for a chicken, but you have to have a manure removal plan. So I hope you've submitted that.
I submitted that.
Okay, and your evacuation plan.
Yeah.
So it seems that they've thought of everything in here to keep everybody safe. I think we should do this on a temporary basis to 6 months, pending. Donna said that she would go back and look at it in 6 months and then grant her at that time.
I second that.
Could I say something before
Mark,
is this going to be open to public? That's all.
Nope, sorry, I apologize. Sorry, KG, you seconded the motion?
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I just wanted to ask just one question. Susan, so you said just what you had said before, you had chickens a while ago, but did you have them in this location?
I did.
You did, and so did you have a waiver granted from a previous board?
No, that's what I said. I had no idea.
Oh, okay.
I had no idea.
So Ron, you might have missed that.
I would retroactively. I just did not know, and it's my fault.
Did you have any inspections before?
Inspections? Not that well.
No, they're not required to, or are they required to?
Walsh came, and she was the one that told me. She's the one that, said, "Oh, by the way, it's too close to the house." I'm like, "Oh no," because my chickens were killed by a dangerous dog. So she came then.
I didn't catch who told you.
Donna Walsh, the animal
okay.
officer.
I mean, so there has been inspections done before, is that right?
So KG, what she's explaining to you is she met Donna 3 years ago because of an unfortunate incident that happened, that her chickens were killed.
Oh,
look at, see, Donna, animal control, look at that. And that's how she met Donna, and she determined that she was supposed to have a permit for the chickens because she did not have one 3 years ago. Okay, so this is the first time she's gone through the process with us.
Right. So it's been left idle for 3 years.
Right.
Ron, are you all set with, I just want to
No, I mean, I agree with exactly what you said about you were out there, and I agree with the 7 or 8 feet versus 25 feet. Looks like she keeps those chickens immaculately. They look they look cleaner than any chicken I've ever seen. They look like little dogs with fluffy fur. You're taking well care of them. But so I agree with you, Diane. I just personally don't think there's a difference. If it's her preference, I'm fine with it. I like Chris's point too, that if there is any potential liability, although I think KG answered that question, just to have that little bit of protection for us. But I don't see where there's ever going to be a problem with it. She does a wonderful job of taking care of those things. So,
Mark, is your recommendation to have the waiver on writing? Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, I would ask that through the motion that's being made by Judy, that you also include the liability will be borne by the applicant requesting the waiver.
You can so move that, Judy.
So moved.
Okay.
I second that.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Hi, Judy.
Hi, KG.
Hi, Diane. Okay, Susan, you are all set. Mark, I don't, again, Mark, you have a question?
Yes, I wanted to frame it because before when Judy was going to make the motion, I was going to ask, is this open to public to ask questions?
What is your question, Mark? Is there something that we didn't answer?
Because I made the motion, my question's going to be mute.
No, well, the thing is we were in the middle of a motion, so you have to keep the process going when you're in the middle of a motion. So that's why I stopped you from speaking, because we were in the middle of taking it. So
I'm not blaming Judy to make the motion now. I was just saying it came up all of a sudden in the discussion and the talk around with the other board members that she wanted to get a motion, which puts a break halt to the discussion.
But Mark Tassoni, I should say, the purpose of this is not a public discussion or a public forum on this topic. So your input beyond citizens' participation is simply at the will of the chair of the board. You're certainly, if she says it's okay for you to make a comment, you can make a comment, but you cannot have a part in the decision making of the motion or the decision. That's just the way it works.
And
okay?
I do understand that. Thank you. I'll go back to the chair with Diane and all that, but I'm just going to ask the question. It was on the agenda, but did not say anything about open a public discussion or open the public. Any
Mark, our regulations require that we offer the applicant a waiver hearing. It's not published in the newspaper. We don't notify butters. So this is for the applicant to come in front of the board to explain the situation at hand. So that's why what Chris was explaining is accurate. But when the board is in the middle of taking a vote, you do not engage in public comments. So
that's exactly what I meant, and I apologize for being abrupt. But I just was taken back by Judy's motion that came up all of a sudden.
Okay.
And I had something on my mind.
Let's move along.
Okay, so thank you, Judy. Thank you for bringing the motion, and I apologize to the board and to the applicant that I was abrupt.
All right, so Susan and Donna, you were both all set. Of course, if there's nothing better on TV, you're more than welcome to keep joining us this evening. But Susan, you and Donna can work together with Laura to get that processed.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.
All right, take care.
Bye.
Good luck with those chickens.
Thank you.
All right. COVID update, Ed Berman, Sergeant Berman.
Hi, everybody. So I've got quite a bit tonight. Excuse me. So many of you know, about 3 weeks ago, the schools opened up for professional development. And we had a couple of teachers that had tested positive in one of our buildings. Just as our plan, we created our plan, everything worked exactly the way we wanted it to work. The school nurse immediately notified Audrey LaCroix. I was immediately included in the meetings. We quarantined as a safety precaution some additional staff that potentially were near this staff member. And what we then did was we worked with the Department of Public Health, and we created a small cluster event. And I was able, working with Nancy Hopkins, the school nurse, we had an epidemiologist assigned to us, and we were able to get the mobile testing out to the school last Thursday. Just so I'll mention, Judy did come out to see how that went. What we did was the mobile testing gave us 50 tests. The school had about 35. So what we did was we opened up the remaining tests for anybody else in the district that was interested in being tested. So we were able to get, we had a total of 45 people that were tested that day. It was very organized. And it was actually funny, DPH said it was the first time they had created this mobile unit for this particular type of scenario. So we were actually the first to use it. And it went so well that I found out from the epidemiologist, they might use us as, if another district has a problem, to call us to tell us how to do it, tell them how to do it. I thought it went really well. I thought the staff was very appreciative of what we did, and everything followed exactly the way the plan was supposed to work. I don't know, Judy, if you want to make a comment, because you kind of watched a lot of this too.
I thought it was well run. I thought it was wonderful that it happened so quickly. Clusters are scary things. I don't know what the end results of the tests were, but I hope they were all great. I like how fast it was done, but the nurse at the school, I'm sorry, her name escapes me.
Nancy Hopkins.
Nancy Hopkins was so organized, as were you. And then it just went so smoothly in and out. It was great because the people that came out were able to circle back and tell the people it wasn't that bad, because everybody was quite nervous about it, but it wasn't that bad.
Great. Any other questions on that before I move on, everyone?
Yeah, just one. So is the purpose of the testing to try to determine the transmission, meaning did the teacher get it from a kid, or did a kid give it to the teacher, or did the teacher get it from another outside source?
Yeah, so the reason so first of all, there were no children in the building yet. The buildings were only open for professional development. We were actually unable to determine where the staff member actually got it. But what we did, the reason we did it was, you remember, you've got that 14-day window. So the reason we did that was we wanted to make sure before we opened that school for students that we were clear. You know, we did it almost precautionary, but we also did it for peace of mind for the staff.
Right.
And
Yeah, that's great.
yeah.
Was there a second test done after 14 days?
No. So,
So
KG,
if they catch it in between, nobody would know.
So what's recommended, KG, is that if you think you were exposed to someone that was positive, they actually recommend that you wait 3 to 5 days before you're actually tested.
Okay.
And we did that, and that's what we did.
All right.
Yeah. Any other questions on that before I move on? Okay. So just I'm sure most of you know, every Friday now, I am part of the school committee meeting that's held every Friday morning at 8 a.m. to look at data to decide what the next week for either remote learning or hybrid learning is going to be. So I supply Jim Adams the data, usually by Wednesday afternoon, early Thursday morning. And then they have their models of what percentages to make a decision on what the next week is going to look like. And what we've done is we're doing a 14-day look back to look at our numbers. You know, because obviously every week we have a few more positives. We have people that we're clearing. And so far, this is working. So we've had 2 Friday morning meetings now, and this has gone really well. And obviously, if any of you want to see how that decision is made, those meetings are open to the public. And those are every Friday at 8 a.m. with the school committee and Jim Adams. I meet, now that we've talked about schools a little bit, schools, as you know, opened yesterday. A really, really smooth start. I've really got to hand it to Jim and all the principals and all the staff. It went exactly how things should be. I meet every day with Audrey LaCroix, who is the who's the charge nurse basically for all the schools and oversees all the nurses. She and I have a conversation every day. And we are in complete communication every day, also with Jim Adams. I talk to Jim every morning at 7 a.m. Yesterday, what I did was I actually visited every school to make sure everything was in compliance. I was quite impressed, especially I actually went during the lunch periods at the schools, just the way they have the tables set up, how the kids are separated. Today, I went to the high school to see lunch. All the kids were outside eating. Everybody's just doing a great job. Obviously, tomorrow there is no school. It's the cleaning day. And then the kids' letters L through Z will go on Thursday and Friday.
Can I ask you a question, Ed? Yeah,
Sure.
I just had a question for you. Now, are the children, it might be an odd question, but are the children allowed to, so to speak, have contact with each other, physical contact with each other?
No. So they're all physically distant. At the high school, I'll use an example. At the high, they have mask breaks that are planned mask breaks. So today I was up at the high school. I saw a classroom of kids, masks off, all separated, taking a walk around the building just to take a break. Then they go back into their classroom. So they have mask breaks. The
younger kids don't.
I was at the so I was at the preschool, at the Pitaway preschool. I was there Monday and Tuesday. The kids have their masks on, and the staff is even impressed how the kids are keeping their masks on at that level too. Yep. And if we do have a positive, it's going to be a group decision on what we're going to do. It'll be myself, the school nurses, Audrey LaCroix, Jim Adams, the principal, the teacher, and it'll be a group decision on what we're going to do.
Question is, the data that you supply is the data for outside the school environment, whatever the data is, right?
Correct. Yes. So
they're going to base their decision on the outside data or inside data.
No. So I give them the town-wide data.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's external to school.
Correct.
Okay.
Two things. One thing I was very impressed by was that the nurses have thought ahead. Ed was telling me about that. If a student is sick at the high school, all of their siblings, no matter what school they're in, are pulled into the isolation room and sent home as well until that kid is cleared, which seemed.
Judy, we might make a slight change on that. We're kind of working that out.
You are?
But, yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, I know. Yep. I did too. There's been a lot of discussion about that. Audrey actually has reached out to a bunch of other districts too to see what they're doing.
Yeah.
So that we're going to try to do what the districts around us are doing. We're just trying to get that data.
Okay. So you might not be doing this anymore?
And I'm not sure. Well, it's a discussion item. Yeah. Okay. Again, part of our daily meetings. Part of our daily meetings.
Who makes that decision?
What reasons would make them not to do that?
Right.
So I know so what we're also looking at is we're looking at the DESE guidelines too. So we're trying to follow the guidelines that DESE's incorporating in conjunction with the Department of Public Health. So we want to be consistent with the guidelines.
But what rationale is there to not to do it?
I'm not sure. Again, we just started talking about this again, KG. So I'll have more information for you guys once we have more meetings about it.
Okay.
Were the parents told you were going to do this?
No.
Okay. No. Okay. Yeah. Could you keep us informed of that decision making? That would be interesting to follow.
So,
I love to call. You guys know I love to call you.
The other thing, you don't have to call us.
The other thing.
We meet on tonight's Tuesday, and these seem to be Wednesdays.
I'm not sure what you're looking at, Judy.
9/9. So 9/9/92. You put this the confirmed and probable. Oops.
Oh yeah. So what I've been doing, Judy, is
background on.
I know. So Judy, since school started, what I'm doing is I'm compiling the data on Thursdays because I don't know if you all know, the state is releasing what they think is the data on Wednesdays now.
Okay.
So that's why. So I moved it off because I've actually found some discrepancies in the state data.
Okay.
So, for example, let me just use this as an example. So last week, there was someone that tested positive, showed up in the data on Wednesday as a new positive in Ashland. And then when we started the contact tracing, we realized that this person is a college student in another state, and she's in that other state. But when she was tested, she used her home address. So again, that's why I really go through the data after it's released to really make sure it's accurate.
Okay.
That's just one example of something that I picked up on.
Okay. Thank you.
I had one question that one of the community member had sent an email about restrooms. I think Robert St. Germain, is that Laura, correct? Yeah, and then this question was raised to the facilities before by you. Have they ever responded? Have they cleared out that issue?
Regarding
regarding the use of bathrooms by the students and then the transmission of germs there.
So I do know in the schools, and because again, I've been in the schools for the last 2 days, the custodians are just constantly cleaning. It's constant. They are not stopping. I've seen them in and out of the bathrooms. I've seen them in the lunchroom. It's a constant cleaning that's going on all day long.
Okay. So when they lift the toilet seat or something, that's the place where they keep lifting, everybody lifts it.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a part of education that you may need to give it to the students as an additional thing to look at it.
Yeah, and I know that the teachers have been going over, I mean, like, for example, when I went to the high school yesterday, you know, the hand sanitizers are outside before the kids even walk in. The kids get off the bus, they've got to do the hand sanitizer before they can come into the building. So I think they're doing a great job.
Okay. All right. That's good.
So last Thursday, everybody, the state released a new program. It's called the Remote Learning Enrichment Program, and it's being run by the Early Education and Care Department of the state. Well, talk about nothing about last minute. So what remote learning enrichment is, it allows individuals to open up learning pods in their homes, almost like a daycare. And these people can basically, so if you think about it, your child goes to school on Mondays and Tuesdays, but you're a family that has to work. What are you going to do with your child on Thursdays and Fridays? Well, okay, I'm going to hire this woman or man to have my child go to their house, and that person would be responsible to make sure that you're on your computer doing your remote learning, be available for questions, different things like that, almost like a daycare. Well, the state decided that if people are going to do this, they have to be approved by the municipality, not by, so they apply for an exemption with EEC. Well, the first people that we, so you'll, our rec center, Kelly Rund, has decided, which I thought was great, that they wanted to be one of these pods. Now, with the size of the rec center, you're allowed to have up to 24 children, okay? So we started the paperwork nightmare trail on Thursday afternoon. So it required a few things on our part. The building required an inspection, fire inspection. Everybody had to be quarried that's going to be working with the kids. We applied. We did, Kelly Rund and Joanne Duffy and I, we did all the paperwork, and we got everything finally submitted yesterday morning, and we got approved this afternoon. So our rec center has now approved as one of these remote learning enrichment programs. So they'll be able to have up to 24 kids. They're getting desks from the school. They have to follow cleaning protocols. I have to, because I'm the approving authority under Board of Health for this, I have to go over and do random inspections to make sure that the proper cleaning's being done, that the kids are spaced out properly, all those kind of things. The school department brought 24 desks up to the community center today. They're going to get them all set up tomorrow. I'm going to go up there, make sure that everything was spaced out properly and done properly. And their plan is to start having kids there on Monday. Will be their first group of kids. Kelly Rund, as you all know, is phenomenal, especially she ran summer camp this summer with no issues at all, followed all the cleaning protocols, everything that she needed to do. We had a very successful summer program up at the rec center. Now, I've already had an individual contact me that wants to create one of these pods in her home, up to 5 students. Her home can accommodate up to 5. I have already sent her all of the information that she needs to do this. And Laura is helping me get her in touch with Mike Crisafulli and the fire department to do an inspection on her home, because it has to meet all the criteria. She needs fire extinguishers, she needs 2 egresses, she needs, and I've already got all of her Corey paperwork in. Ironically, this woman is a 3rd grade teacher that's just not working this year. And I expect to see potentially more of these coming through. Again, once all the paperwork's in, they have to submit it to the state, and the state will notify me if they're approved or not. This is all happened Thursday afternoon at 3 o'clock.
So do you have to play an active role in this, Ed?
Yes, yes.
So how much of your day do you think this is going to take up, this new?
Well, I'll be honest with you, Judy. I've only had this one other person. Now that I worked on it with Kelly, I could probably, I know what has to be happen. I don't think it's going to take a ton of my time. I will have to do random inspections, which I have no problem doing. I'll just include that as some of the inspections I'm doing now.
Is this billable under the COVID money that we get?
That I don't do any of the financial stuff, so I don't know the answer to that, Judy.
Mark, do you know? Mark?
Yeah, I'm not for sure. I believe we can ask for all the COVID information, the information on the grant from finance. Ed, you don't have access to that?
No.
I'd
Okay.
like to know how it's going to affect our budget.
Yeah, we could ask the.
Well, you're
COVID
talking about for the town though, correct, Judy? Not specific to our grant?
Well,
Because
yeah, for the town.
yeah, so
because
that, we
doesn't
could
know
get
it.
that information, but that's not information that, that Ed would have. It's because the town in its entirety got, they call the CARES Act money.
Right.
So that's what they, I say we all are using for any extra expenses, things like that. So.
Hopefully being
you had
able to
mentioned
charge
a
for that,
few.
though, is what I'm saying. Huh?
Okay. I think
Otherwise-
Diane gave us a nice rundown at the last meeting, how they're divvying it up a little bit with some of the school needs. I don't know, Ed, but I believe some of the funding might be helping your part of this program. Again, we would have to check that to verify.
I would just like to know if it's going to be a budget buster. I can see this really being a
What
suck
Mark
on-
was saying is I don't have it right in front of me, but I want to say that the schools got I'm trying to remember. I know that the town set aside $200,000 for an assistant program to help people, with their, whether it's mortgage or rents. I believe, I'm trying to remember, I think it was 700,000 that went to the school,
Yes.
maybe
Somewhat
300 to the
that.
town, something like that. So the town got like 300. So it's, everybody received a little bit of money.
I'm just trying to, so we have a budget and we have a certain number of hours. Ed, if he can't deduct this out of COVID funds, that's how we have him, as my understanding, then somebody else should be doing this, right? Somebody like.
Well, like I said, right now, Judy, right now it's just it's the rec center's approved. They're ready to go. This other person, most of it's on them. They've got to do their own applications. They've got to apply with Laura to have the building inspector and fire permit done. Because there's a fee for that. I literally just review it once all the paperwork's in, and then go do the inspection.
Judy, can I ask for clarification to your question? Were you referring to the school's budget or to the board's, to the town's budget or to the board's budget?
Me?
Yeah.
The board's budget.
Okay.
None of the COVID expenses are coming out of our actual budget line item that you look at and we review every month or every 2 weeks.
Well,
That's not part of that. That's not allocated in our budget anyway.
Right.
Now, so the town received an allocation of money. So
No, I understand all that. My question to Ed was, is this covered under, I said, how much of your time? He said, well, if a lot of people, a lot of time, to which I said, is this applicable under the COVID funds that we received as a town? He said, I don't know. I asked Mark. Mark did.
It is covered. I can tell you it is covered.
Thank you. That's all.
Because there are restrictions. No, you are accurate. There are restrictions on the money that you receive. Right. So I'm just gonna give you a quick example. So let's just say, I'll use Tom for example, because he's not getting paid out of COVID, but let's say Tom normally works 10 hours a week for us.
Right.
And then we said, because of COVID, we want you to work an extra 10 hours a week for us.
Okay.
We have to still cover his regular 10 hours and then the other 10 can come out of COVID. We can't take the 20 out of COVID. We have to pay him his base out of our budget. And then so.
Okay. So this new remote learning enrichment, is going to have an effect on that. Okay.
Yeah, and again, in this program, Judy, was created under the emergency exemption for COVID.
Okay,
That's the reason that these were created.
great.
Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, Ed, I'm just going to fire up some questions in whichever order you want to ask. So, and you can just,
I quit.
Just the same, yeah, I don't know how the heck you do what you do. You know, if you have any more time, I got a lot of stuff in my house that could use to be done. Is the protocol for COVID testing the same as it is for any other school? How much demand do you have versus how many slots you have? The parents pay for this individually. Is that regulated by the state, or is it something that any individual provider can charge their own fees?
Yeah.
Just anything like
Yeah,
that.
so I actually looked into that because what's interesting is if there wasn't COVID right now, for example, these people, anybody that wanted to do this would have to apply for a daycare license. So it falls under the same category as a daycare license, where these daycares can charge whatever they want, but they have certain requirements they have to meet. You know, the quarries, the sorries, all those kind of things. So yeah, if you're looking for guidance, it falls under that whole daycare provision.
Okay.
The difference though, Ron, is that these pods, it's the municipality that's responsible for overseeing the pod. The early education and care department will not be coming out and doing inspections. They're leaving it up to the communities. So, you know, again, we have one that's approved. We potentially have another, but that person has to follow through and do all the work ahead of time.
And do you think you'll have enough slots for people that need to utilize that service?
So I do know, because what I've been, I talked to a lot of parents, there's been a lot of neighborhood pods created, which do not require any oversight from the town or the state or anything. So basically, that's a couple of families that get together. One of the parents is, going to be home with the kids during remote learning. Those require no oversight at all. I'm going to probably tell you that's probably about 80%. Well,
wow.
These are going to be these neighborhood pods that have been created.
Got you.
Is there a process by which they are accepted?
That I think that's just however applications come in, that would be up to them. We have no bearing on that at all.
So if I have my granddaughter and her friend here for remote learning and I don't charge anybody anything, I don't need one of those?
Correct. If it's family, you don't have to do anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Ed, are they trying to break up the neighborhood pods are they trying to just regulate them on where people are at? Or
I think the reason that this came to be is because, I don't know if it, let's just not think Ashland, but I think across the state, I think what's happened is more and more people are going back to work. And there's those 2 or 3 days that the kids are not in school, and parents can maybe not be able to find a neighborhood pod. So they're actually looking for almost like a quote, a daycare. And that's someone that's going to be there to make sure that their child is doing their remote learning.
Okay.
Yeah. More. Again, we literally found out about this program Thursday afternoon at like 3:00.
All right.
Just let me, so much going on. One more thing. So I'm sure Mark will talk a little bit about this too. On Friday, Mark and I, we were part of a webinar with Kitty Mahoney from Framingham. The plan for the upcoming flu clinic is going to be on September 26th from 9 to 3 at Keefe Tech. It's going to be a drive-through flu clinic. They are hoping to vaccinate in 6, I don't know how we're going to do this, but in 6 hours, Mark is going to smile in a minute, between 2,000 and 3,000 people. The first 2 hours are going to be dedicated to seniors who need the high dose. Potentially, if any of the seniors that need the high dose, Mark is working on getting volunteers, and at our Monday meeting, division meeting, Mark is going to be getting Beth Reynolds and Ashley Place all the information to get posted on our website, and so that they can start doing some emails out to everybody from the email lists that the town has about the upcoming flu clinic, which is a week from Friday. I'll be there. The plan is there's going to be, as you get vaccinated, there's going to be two kind of lines. So anybody that has never had a flu vaccine, after they get vaccinated, they're going to pull over into a section because there's going to be a 15-minute wait for them to make sure that they don't have a reaction. And people that have had flu vaccine in the past will not have to wait. They'll get their vaccine and drive away. They're going to push out forms for everybody so that their application form is pre-filled before they arrive. And I know Mark is working on getting tons of volunteers because we're going to need people to direct traffic. We're going to need nurses. And again, Kitty Mahoney's kind of running the show on that. And that's kind of my update.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're a busy man, Ed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Mark, do you want to add anything to the COVID discussion?
Sorry, muted. I think it had a good rundown. I think we will be finding further information as we hear from the state on how these remote learning facilities will work, especially if you have someone that may have been in that room that's positive. It's obviously going to cause quite a bit more work for Ed and all of us at our level if that does occur.
Anybody have any questions for either one of them about COVID? Hold on one second, Mark. Mark, excuse me. Sorry, I know Chris said it too. Mark DeSoni, hold on one second. Any board members have any questions? No? Okay, Mark DeSoni, you had a question?
Question and a compliment. Thank you, Ed, for being everywhere, but in one person's mind. You just do everything. And to Mr. Mark Ong, who's going to get those volunteers. Good thing you don't need a turtle, huh? And I'm understanding that COVID is serious, but I want to ask Ed, through the TV broadcast, what color is Ashland as of yesterday or today? If you can answer that, Ed.
Yeah. So right now we're in the yellow, but the new numbers will come out tomorrow. The state will release those around 4 o'clock tomorrow.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Mark. We'll move along to the next item on the agenda. Appoint a Board of Health member to serve on the Ashland Housing Production Plan Steering Committee. I don't know if everybody reviewed the email from Emma from the Planning Department. I went up and saw her just quickly just to make sure I was presenting it appropriately to the board. So basically this is, they're going to be virtual meetings. Virtual meetings. The charge, so to speak, the meetings are supposed to be basically September to March, but because we're kind of towards the end of September, we'll probably start in October. So the commitment would be from October to, I believe she said April, until the project is complete. So basically it would be just an advisory. Laura, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it was, is it MAPC is?
APC, yeah.
Yeah, okay, they're the ones, and I'm sorry, I apologize. But putting the program together, so it's just an advisory to that. So does anybody want to volunteer to be part of that committee?
Diane, I was looking at that See if I can pull it up here just to have it in front of me.
All right,
I
I'll
was
do the
looking
same.
at the document related to that position, or to that committee, I should say. And I'm not sure I really understand or agree that a member of our board really needs to be on that. But now if someone obviously wants to volunteer or wants to be on that, that's a different story. But I think that it's more about, you know, I don't see how the Board of Health really plays a role in what they're trying to accomplish. I think it's more of, you know, like some of those other committees that were on the top of that list. I wish I could pull that sheet up. Of
I'm
course,
trying to do the same thing as well on a phone.
the one
so,
thing that you're looking for is never in front of you.
I thought, and again, I'm trying to pull it up because I don't want to misspeak, but I thought it, Mark, you holding it up for us?
Housing production plan.
No, I believe, but I think the plan, like, it was inclusive of the Board of Health. Like that's what MAPC would, you know, I just want to pull, I don't have it in front of me either. I apologize.
Full committee, affordable housing.
Yeah,
planning,
yeah.
Yeah, conservation.
Yeah, so they do want a member of the Board of Health. And I mean, usually when the MAPC pulls it together, there's usually like, there's a standard guideline that like when we do the regional nursing, that's, you know, they're the ones who know like the standard of how to do these projects, I'll call it.
You know when the meetings are usually?
They haven't set them yet, KJ.
Okay.
My understanding of, you know, when a group like this starts out, I mean, they will reach out once each department has, or each board has appointed a member, they will probably send out some type of a, you know, poll on the meeting. I know that of course, they're virtual meetings. I believe they're once a month.
Yeah, it said, I think it said once a month.
Okay.
I mean,
Nobody's.
I'm certainly willing to, you know, to do it if we need somebody, because you guys, you know, you and Chris and Diane are already, you know, doing things. So I'm happy to do that. Right now, I'm not doing anything with as a liaison to decisions at every turn, so I feel useless there. So long as the meetings are at the time that I can make them, if they're, I don't know if it's going to be, you know, during the workday. If that's the case, if it's a lunchtime thing, I can certainly do it. But if it's an after and work thing, I'm happy to do it.
My understanding.
And I could help Ron. If he couldn't make a meeting, I'll try to go for him, just as not to make decisions, but to take notes and get back to him. One of the things they did note in the letter, which was important, is the needed resources as we go through COVID-19. Just so the board knows, over the past few weeks, I've been working with our social service director, human resources director. She not human resources, human services director. She and I have been very busy with issues that could be helped if we had additional housing. And so I think that's one of the reasons, never mind the COVID-19, that I believe they feel the Board of Health needs to be a very active member on this committee.
Diane, if it's going to be times when you can't meet it, I was on the Affordable Housing Committee in the past and have some background in this area as far as what's needed for housing. So if you can't meet at those times, let me know and I can step forward.
No, I mean, I thought you would be the logical choice because it's kind of right up your alley as far as what you do, but I'm certainly happy to do it. If you'd prefer, if you have the time, that's fine. No, okay, I'll do it, but I'll be asking you questions.
But if you find that it's not working, like time-wise, let me know.
Thank you.
But you know, if there is a nomination to be done, only one person can go.
Yeah.
Right. So, well, what I was going to say
that'll be designated. That'll be a designated person.
Once a month, I don't think, you know, I'm sure it's a few hours.
All right.
I don't think it'll be an issue.
Ron, I'm glad to nominate you for that.
Okay.
And if somebody can second that,
I'll second it.
Right.
Thank you, Chris. Any further discussion? All in favor?
AGI.
Aye, Chris.
Diane. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank
Welcome.
you.
And again, Ron, if there, you know, if you find that there's any conflicts, we can bring it up at the next meeting. We can discuss.
Yeah,
it.
no problem.
No problem.
Is there, should I get a hold of them or will you just give them my name?
I was going to say, Mark, will you just follow up with Emma just because he's in the same office? Maybe just follow up with Emma, and then I mean we can, of course, we can do an appointment letter if they want an appointment letter.
Yeah, Laura,
can't-
Do you
Laura
want me
can
to,
send.
do you want me to
Yeah.
just type up an appointment letter so they have it for file, Mark? Okay.
I can do it too.
That would be good.
Laura,
Yeah.
can do it. There
I
you
said
go.
I can do.
Yeah, that's fine. Laura, if you want to do that, and then
Yeah.
I can sign it, and then we'll get that to them, and then we'll give you your contact information, Ron.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Diane, if you have any this is just personal information, just because not that I know what our jurisdiction is kind of according to Chris, but I would think that affordable housing is more of the state mandated thing. And then it has to do with zoning and then getting people in to, build these things, and for the town of Ashland to have sites available to put these at. Like, I'm just wondering how that works in general. Do you have like a Reader's Digest version, or?
Just getting affordable housing here in the community?
Yeah, because it says that piece of paper said we went up like, we're up to 6.5%,
I think
and we need
Ju-
10.
Judy probably can give you a better idea on that because she's served on those committees.
Yeah,
Okay,
you could probably give, yeah.
Basically, what helps it is 40B developments like Bafford's development with the condos, 10% of those need to be affordable. So they go into the affordable pool and you can, sort of apply. You have to meet certain criteria. But anytime anybody wants housing that's, pretty tight and congested, it can be a 40B. It basically just gives the town a way to build up to get to 10%. In Ashland, the condos have been a big one. They really haven't. There was a development off of Raymond Marchetti years ago by a member of the board, which was single family housing. But as far as a whole lot, I don't think that there is a whole lot. Right now, there are affordable apartments going in for 62 plus, and they are favoring Ashland residents. So that's off of Independence on Robert Hill Way.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if apartments count, but they should. I don't, but I'm assuming they do.
So is this, Judy, when a developer asks, to build some type of development, it's not as though that entire development needs to be devoted to the low income or affordable housing. It's that 10%.
Yeah, if they don't get under the 40B, they may not be able to build any of those things. So to circumvent
now I get it.
certain regulations are waived off for that 40B. That's why they get into 40B, so that they'll make money out of the remaining lot, but not the 10% of lot.
Understood.
So say they want to cluster, put, 10 houses where 5 should go. And the bylaws in the town don't allow that. If they go to the state and want to do a 40B, which is affordable units as part of it, then they bypass sort of the state rules and regulation, the town rules and regulations, and go to the state for the 40B.
God, yeah.
It's interesting. You're going to like it.
Yeah.
Right. But are there penalties for the town in some way if that 10% is not met by a certain time?
I think the biggest down part about not having 10% is that it allows 40Bs to come into town. 40Bs can't push through the town if you're at 10%. So once you get there, you don't have developers trying to
add more buildings, kind.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Okay. Mark, you're up. Health agents report. You're still muted, Mark.
I will unmute, I promise. Sometimes I use the space.
I can read lips sometimes, but.
So we do have Tom. Hi, Tom.
Tom.
We wanted to make sure Tom and I were available to review the food program updates as well as the food application update. And I think KG will be part of the food application update discussion as well. The food program called Food Code Pro. Tom and I have been to 2 trainings, unfortunately, and they told us that it was unfortunate they didn't load the program properly as it relates to our own food establishments. So they in turn said they will conduct one more training because unfortunately it stalled some of the needed training on the second session we had. So they're planning that. That's on September 30th. So, and they have since imported the correct information to the program. Tom's been actively testing it. I'm trying to find some time tomorrow morning or Thursday morning to do a little, what we call test restaurant. At the same time, Tom has had some pretty good experience with what he's done so far. So if I may, Tom, if you can maybe offer some insight on the program itself.
Sure. Thank you, Mark. As you mentioned, I was able to log on to the program recently and do some test inspections on it. There's a capability with it to conduct inspections on an establishment, comically enough, called Testaurant. And I've done different scenarios with that. It does have an integrated scoring system that's kind of defaulted into it. We can tweak that. That's something we can tweak down the road to kind of align with how we want to go about that. It was interesting. I put a scenario on there where on this mock inspection that there was an ill employee that didn't report to the Board of Health. And then I also put down a violation as an imminent health hazard. So those two violations are something that we could possibly use when closing an establishment in the very rare instance that there had been a failed report. And when I generated the inspection, the grade on the score said excellent on peculiar. So I reached out to Lisa Berger and she kind of clarified it for me, where on the FDA that the state mandated form, there actually isn't a spot on that checklist for the 8-40411, which is imminent health hazard, which gives the board the authority to close a business, whether it be for an onset of an illness or a sewer dump or a fire. It's kind of a blanket code, but apparently, oddly enough, there isn't a slot for it on the standard. So she kind of put it under local regs. So it came through as a 2-point deduction. So that's why that was the rationale behind that. So she kind of clarified that for me, but I found that to be odd that, that would be the circumstance that they would get an excellent grade. I think that we should, maybe take a look at that. I know she has a formula that she uses for her own scoring system, but maybe we could, they can customize it to our liking. That's something we can certainly look at down the road. I do like how user-friendly it is as far as there's a keyword search option on it. It makes it more quick to pull down violations for various different items. For instance, I was at an establishment the other day that had some thawed food that was supposed to be frozen, and I couldn't find the specific violation for that. So I used a different one that could also be applicable, but I found on the Food Code Pro, you just type in the word frozen and it brings up every imaginable violation that would have to do with frozen food. And then I found it very easily. So it's pretty seamless. There's definitely some quirks to it that I would have to familiarize myself with, and I'm going to continue to look at it and use it and use the testing mechanism on the software. And like Mark said, we have another training lined up at the end of the month. We should be able to get this rolled out there as soon as possible thereafter.
I got a question for you, Tom. If a restaurant has an employee with COVID, do they have to report to you?
They certainly do. They have to self-report. The requirement is, and Ed probably could speak to this, but I believe to shut down for 24 hours, clean and disinfect the restaurant.
That is correct, Tom.
And then contact us for approval to reopen.
Do we go out for a site visit or, yeah, okay.
Just as an example there, Judy, if you remember about a month ago, Murphy's, they did not have a positive employee, but they had an employee that was a contact, but he made the decision to shut down for the 24 hours, which he didn't even have to do. But his first call was to us at the Board of Health.
Great.
And we went over and did an inspection to get him reopened.
Okay. Good.
All right, so I just was changing a piece of paper. The food permit application, I know that KG had a suggestion, I believe it was, to add, I think that's the only change in here is right that we're looking to add the section that just asks if they own another establishment in Massachusetts.
Yeah, it got brought up, Diane, because of what we've seen in the past. We have
Yep.
sometimes food restaurants and even small food shops open up. They start with the CFM and then all of a sudden we find that the CFM has disappeared to a different location. So
Right.
I think these are excellent suggestions, but I'll let KG speak to them.
You got to unmute.
All right, thank you. I know from the recent experience that we got with a couple of restaurants where they had different establishments, and then this way we can track their timing and see whether they really pay attention to this restaurant and keep it good. And we also had CFMs working in two different establishments, or same owner had two different establishments. So we want to track those things to make sure that the full-time CFM is here, full-time he shows up here, and then we don't find somebody having 40 hours here and 60 hours in the other place. And you can't expect somebody to work for 100 hours a week. So that's what we're trying to gather information and then catch it right in the early stages. So if there is anything happening, we can point it to them that they need to appoint another CFM if there is a shortage of it. So.
Now, just for curiosity also, because I know I think Laura included the online permitting that's available for our office now, which I think is great. Can they just make changes like this? Like we can just send this to them and say, please add this, and they just add the line. Is that how it works?
Where, the programming?
Yeah, because we have a company who does it, right, Mark? I think.
Well, and the other concern is, do we want to pass it by legal counsel? I think Tom and I discussed that, and anytime we make a change like this, is it legal to ask that question? So we were going to ask the board to approve the change, but conditional to legal counsel review.
Yeah.
We don't need to actually vote and approve it, right? We don't need to vote and approve the form, right?
We do. Normally,
we do?
that's
Okay.
that's how we're done.
Okay.
And it's important to note that KG, didn't you also include a question on there to notify us if they change ownership?
Yes, that was added up there to make sure that we don't find an establishment without notifying us, which happened recently.
It seems to me that both Mark and Tom think that they're good changes, and I trust their judgment. So I'm going to move that we adopt the changes to that form as recommended, contingent upon council review and approval by legal counsel.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I just wanted to follow up on that. So is that, just because I'm a visual, so is that the last page of the form? Oh no, it's certified. So which section do we change on the form for that about?
So that was resent to you, Diane, yesterday. I think me and KG worked on it.
Right.
Okay, that's fine. I just didn't see it, so I didn't know if I was missing. Okay. Sorry. Anybody have any further questions? Okay, all in favor? Say aye.
Hi, KG.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, Diane.
And Diane, if I can ask Tom to stay on for this next discussion, because it deals with outdoor seating at restaurants as well as the status of Tripoli and West Nile virus. Or Tom, if you have the time.
Yeah, before you jump onto the
Sure.
next subject or next topic, Mark, I do remember there was some kind of a notification in one of those CMR regulations that the DPH needs to be notified of our forms that we adopt. So you may want to send a copy of it once we
If it
finalize
is,
with the Lisa Mead.
if it's considered a regulation, I'm not. sure.
No, even the form, it specifically said the permit form.
Okay, well,
That's what it
I'll
said,
let-
if I remember right. And I'll pull up the CMR and let you know which one is it.
okay, that's fine. If it's the application as well, by all means, we can send
Okay.
that to the state as well.
Mark, do you know how, kind of back to my question, do you know how the company works? Like, we can just, like, once this is approved, we can just send it to them and they'll update it on our online applications? Is that how it works?
I'll refer this one to Laura. Laura.
Say
if you
that
don't-
again, Diane?
So with making, like, if we make this change now, do they just go on and update it for the online applications like right away? Or do we have to wait till an annual basis or?
No, I'll just be able to give it to Paul or Ryan in IT, and they should.
Oh,
just
they
be
do
able
it.
to- yeah.
Okay.
Could we get them up on one of these meetings to know how things work with that?
Paul or Ryan?
Or anybody who's working on this one internally,
For what reason, KJ?
to find out how does it work, what kind of data we can pull out and how we can pull out things.
Well,
Or I can talk to Paul if that's the need.
no, I was
That
gonna
might
say,
be
I mean,
better
Mark
offline.
and- Yeah, but and Mark and Laura might have the answers now.
Okay.
Are you
So the
talking about the online permit itself or the online inspection form?
No, the online permit form, that's what they're talking
Okay.
about.
Okay.
Once you collect the data, that we should be able to gather the information and then sort out and then pull out those people who are required to have anti-choke and find out who fails these numbers and things like that.
KG, I'm
Right.
going to modify your inquiry just in case, but only because I deal with online forms all day long. And sometimes the case is someone will fill it out online and then it's just printed and filed on our end. So the question would be,
Yeah.
is that the case, Laura? Do you know, does someone that fills out an online form, is it just printed and then filed with the other forms that are filled in by hand?
Right. So it's
Or is
not-
that data captured into a database
No, it's not
and then stored
captured.
as data?
Right. It's just a PDF that you can just print out and fill out. Yeah.
Okay, so KG, to your question, it
Mhm.
doesn't look like these forms are being entered into a database where we can collect that data and
Okay.
manipulate it.
All right.
Not
Good
yet.
question, though. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, Mark, if you want to move to Tripoli and West Nile virus.
Yes. First of all, we've had a very dry summer, so that has actually helped decrease the mosquito activity. And so that, to some degree, that's fortunate, but at the same time, we have a water ban. At the same time as that's going on, we have seen an increase in West Nile virus in the urban areas around Boston, as well as Tripoli has shown up in the wetter areas of the southeast where there's more swamps. With that said, it's what do we do this year? I worked with Laura to put together a overview of next steps, and the board's talked about this to some degree. And that is, what do we do if we have go into a high or critical risk situation with either Tripoli or West Nile virus? Just so the board knows, if we do, at the present time, and the reason I started this conversation with the mosquito activity is that the towns of Plymouth and Middleborough, I contacted them, and at this present time, they're just, especially Middleborough, because Plymouth unfortunately was noted, but the person was living in Quincy, but said she got bit in Plymouth. So, but they have done nothing to ban outdoor seating due to the mosquito activity. And that goes for the same in Middleborough, as well as they do say, though, that people need to be responsible. Say if you do have seating, outdoor seating near a swampy area where there's mosquitoes present, then people should be responsible for themselves, and same with the restaurant if they need to screen it and so forth. I am still waiting on a call back from the state. I sent notice by email to the state on if they can screen the two sides of the tents that they're allowed right now to have. And I'm still waiting on a response from them. But Somerville was one of the towns that had West Nile viruses going into a higher risk. And they're just, again, what he wrote back to me, their health director, is that they presently are not doing anything special for outdoor seating due to the limited mosquito population. So concentration is what he said. With that said, we probably will find ourselves in the same situation. And that is if we do go to higher critical risk, some logistics and some decisions will have to be made, I believe, based on mosquito concentration. Is it an automatic no outdoor seating, or is it we take it into consideration? And curtailment might be the word that we use for outdoor events and outdoor seating, based on, in my view, mosquito concentrations at the time. It may need to go to an emergency meeting of the board because there'll be decisions that are outside of what we had to make last year. Last year was fairly easy. We had a high mosquito concentration. We did not have COVID-19, where the incentives to have outdoor seating was to keep businesses alive. It's okay. Is that yours, Diane? That's good. Dax, be good. Anyway.
Nobody's sleeping anymore.
Anyway, so this is a living document that I sent the board. I think it will have to be based on the situation at the time. And I would invite Timothy Deschamps from Central Mass Mosquito Control. He's really, in my view, our expert to determine what we do for the next step if we go to a higher critical risk. Might it be West Nile virus or might it be Triple E? Triple E has more consequences if you do have a Triple E situation happening versus West Nile virus. I'm not underestimating in any way West Nile virus, but Triple E is a very serious virus where West Nile virus is a virus, but not as critical as Triple E.
Mark, to many of the points you made and the rest of the board, last year we made a very radical decision because we were at a very critical situation. This year, I'm grateful that the mosquito population isn't as rambunctious and abundant, because to make a decision, if we are in a position where we have to make a decision like we made last year, we may put restaurants out of business.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, we have to really think about the resources we're using to make these decisions. This year, public safety is always going to be our first priority, I hope. But to that end, we also have to consider where it puts us in the COVID world we live in, as opposed to beyond the COVID world. So I hope that we all keep that in mind as we move forward, making those decisions.
And Chris,
in that regard, I think prevention is better now. That's what we need to be alert about it and get it prevented. This connection, I was in the CONCOM meeting yesterday. The solar panel on the Nyanza, they were describing their detention ponds. I believe that water doesn't drain, so it stays as a stagnant water body. So if they are spraying anywhere in a stagnant water body, that you need to include that one. This may not be included in the archives of the mosquito control division. So you need to make it a point to note them that this is there.
KG, can they access that, or they need to get keys?
Access to what?
The detention pond at the.
I have no idea. I think probably you need to talk to the Nyanza solar panel group and find out.
I can do that, and that's a good point. I'm glad you bring that to our attention.
Yeah,
you brought that
because they did tell me that it's not draining anywhere. There's no drain pipe, so it's just sitting there as a pond.
It has stagnant water. Okay, and if I can, to Chris's point, the one thing that has helped is the tents. Having tents, you can't have more than two sides, but that's why I'm trying to get that answer from the state, because I think that would be a win-win. The tents have already helped with the restaurants surviving, and they may be even a more valuable resource if we do have any concerns with Triple E or West Nile virus.
Yeah, and if we can it might be a good plan for us to build a list of the resources that we can provide to the restaurant owners to say, here are some proactive steps you can take now that could mean the difference between you being able to continue to do business outdoors, even if the risk level changes.
And I'm going to push the state to get an answer on those screens, Chris,
Right.
because that would be a nice opportunity. But I don't want to recommend that if the state says, no, you can't do that.
Right.
But I'm going to push the state. I'll send another notice to the person I'm dealing with. Thank you, Chris.
In that regard, there are some grant programs that Beth Daniels was announcing it. Maybe that's a place where they can go and then apply for an extra funding if Beth Daniels can find a means to get that funded.
Go, Judy.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm reading the memo from Mark to the Board of Health. I just have a couple of additions on this, Mark.
Sure.
This is great work pulling this together so that there's, something here if we ever need to look at what we do. But third paragraph, the Board of Health office will keep a contact list. I'd like to add in there 55 plus communities, nursing homes, and perhaps equine. Remember last year about the horses, people that have horses? I don't know what that's called. But I know you have those. So, and how about posting signage at playgrounds? Didn't we do that last year? And I forget who was responsible for that.
DPW helped us out. Go ahead, Laura.
Sorry, I was just going to say Roy Korea.
Oh, Roy.
Yeah.
Okay. So DPW did it.
Yeah, we had signs made and then DPW took them.
All right, so if we could just include that in there, just so that we have like one document that says, our marching.
Right.
Good points, yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else, Mark, for Tripoli or West Nile virus?
No, but again, I'm just grateful. I just happy to see the mosquito concentration lower than it has been in past years.
So Mark, I'm not holding you to this, just your opinion, since it seems like last year there were so many cases compared to this year. Are we talking about maybe a 5-week or a 6-week period? Well, by the time, let's say, that first freeze hits, because then we're good after that.
Well, last year I was praying for frost. A hard frost is what we need. We didn't get that till near Veterans Day, beginning of November.
Right.
But what happened just this past week during a DPH teleconference on COVID was Katie Brown. She's our state doctor for the Department of Public Health. She had mentioned on Tripoli, not West Nile virus, but Tripoli, by September 15th, at that point in past history, I think she was using 2010 data, only 5% chance at that point of seeing any further cases, 5% more cases. So it's good that we're working downward, but you are correct. We do need that first hard frost to do a killing of the mosquitoes.
Well, that's today, the 15th.
It is today, yes. It's the first day for heating season in apartments too. But I'm glad it was cool out this morning. But again, we're moving in the right direction at this point. We're at the September 15th point, but we still we don't want to underestimate the precautions we need to take and wait for that first hard frost.
Yeah.
What do you mean by apartments? They have a rule?
Oh, that's at minimum standards for human habitation. On September 15th, the heating season starts.
Oh.
It was just a little ad. Don't worry about that. It wasn't just a little condition.
Just for the record, I feel like turning my heat on right now. Chilly in my office. All right. All set with that, Mark?
Yes, Diane.
Okay. All right. The IMA with City of Framingham?
Yes, we met last, we being the towns of Framingham, Hudson, MAPC, and Ashland, myself. We met with MAPC to review where we're at, and Sam Wong was there from Framingham. And one of the questions I know I asked, because I asked on behalf of the board, is how are we doing on a nurse? And unfortunately, he explained that due to, he's already interviewed, I believe, 4 people, and none of them accepted the job. It's you have to be bilingual, as well as there was some concerns to, Tom, I don't have a problem with you leaving. I didn't mean to interrupt that. point. But the
Thank you, Tom.
the issue becomes finding a nurse and attracting a nurse. And he brought on an interesting note. He said entry-level nurses coming out of college are making 30% more than what is being offered through this regional nurse. Nursing services, due to COVID and everything else, to attract nurses, you have to have salaries. And I went over a situation in the city of Marlborough that we had to look at for the same purpose. With that said, a few other things were discussed. And one was resources, obviously, about the nurse, but two, Holliston wasn't at the table, and we're not for sure where Holliston stands, and MAPC was going to try to get information. They did send the updated forms, which I will send to the board. I just wanted to go over it with you first. Today they sent it. I just haven't had a chance to digest it, and I don't want to send out something before I look at it, and then I can, if I need to add anything to whatever I send you, I can do that at that time. But Holliston, if I didn't say it right, Holliston wasn't at the table. There may be the chance that Southborough might be interested, but the Ron O'Connor, the DPH liaison, who I'm dealing with to find out about screening as well, he has to make a decision if we can add a new community to the grant, because this is all part of a grant as the kickstart. And they're looking into that right now. Outside of that, the pandemic also caused a halt into the actual municipal agreement. It was decided that if this COVID-19 was to reoccur or any other pandemic, that this nurse could not handle that. And so they put a specific statement in the IMA, the intermunicipal agreement, that it will not cover pandemic coverage. I would expect it will work like COVID-19 has, with additional funding coming through to hire additional nurses and so forth. But at this time, they've changed it to make sure that's very clear. This is for the routine nursing, not for pandemics. And talking about routine nursing, when we go over our budget, I'll bring up how our routine nursing is out of whack a little bit right now due to a case. But anyways, back to the IMA, that's where it stands at this point.
Mark, what will it take for, I'll say Framingham or MAPC, what will it take for them to increase the salary?
They're going to need an agreement to change the IMA, which I'll have to share with the board. They may have to say, well, if we are planning to do that, then every community has to put in, well, let's see, if he's saying 30% more, it could be everyone has to add that percent difference to what we're adding. So I may be coming back to the board saying, listen, not listen, but here's the review. And now they're saying we can't go with the amount that we're offering. We need to offer whatever the percent is. It's resources.
Well, and it's just, the reason why I was saying is because we have the grant, the grant to cover some of the position. I know each community has a certain budget amount. But then the city of Framingham originally said they were going to cover, the benefits, if you will. So I would think that would be something that they would, obviously, I guess.
It's the actual salary that's the concern.
Or the base salary.
Yeah, it's the base.
No, I know, but why wouldn't that be something that Framingham would just?
It could be about $18,000. If 30% is 60, it's about, I'm giving you raw numbers here, but it could be another 18,000. I don't know if they were planning to kick that in.
Okay. Yeah, just keep up interested on that.
Yeah.
I think that's the only way we're gonna get somebody, in the position, and somebody who's gonna stay for that matter, and also get our value, so, if we have to go to management and explain the situation because we need somebody with specific, qualities, then, I just want to make sure we, I think it's time for them to say, okay, we're going to increase the salary and see what we can get and see, but there's my.
I really think that is.
Yeah, in that context, when we have a new budget coming up, we should probably properly measure this nursing value and then put the appropriate salaries. Maybe we are budgeting low on that.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions at all on that part?
Okay. I don't think so. Thank you, Mark.
Flu clinic. Thank you, Ed. If you're still here, I don't know if Ed's still here.
Yep.
He and I are working together with Kitty, and Nancy will help as well as Ed's working with the school nurses. And I'm waiting for Kitty to provide me the application, and I can get the VIS, vaccine information sheet. Diane knows all these acronyms because
Yes, I do.
so many years.
No.
But I promise not to use acronyms. I always try to avoid.
Now, any of the board member, I will not be available that day, but any of the board members, anybody willing to volunteer that day to help for the clinic?
I'm not available. I wish I was. It's the only
Well,
this month that I can't.
What day is that?
Saturday, September 26th, a week from this Saturday, KG.
Saturday morning, right?
Well, all day. It starts at 7 with training, goes till 3, but they don't expect volunteers to stay for the full time.
Okay.
Whatever portion you can help with.
I think I can probably help with some traffic control, things like that, or
Sure.
Lining up people or giving directions to them, so I can do that. So I
Well, I
need
think
to,
also, Mark, if.
I need to reach out to who?
Kitty Mahoney and
Okay.
You want to
KG,
do a little
I'm
PSA
saying that-
about that, Mark?
copy,
just to let people
copy
know
you
who
and
to
Kitty
call?
Mahoney. I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
copy Kitty Mahoney and Mark on that and then send an email.
Go ahead.
But
Dan.
Mark, do you want to do a PSA just to the public and let them know who to call, and do you have her
Yeah,
number?
well, they're asking for certified MRC members first. And
Oh, okay.
Kitty did note today in an email that she should be good with staffing, so I don't want to go against the grain and
Okay.
send people in that aren't certified
Okay.
MRC members.
So
So,
I am not a certified MRC member though.
oh, see, that's, we can
That's-
talk offline, KG.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
But, and then the application of the vaccine information sheet, once Kitty sends those to me, I'm sending them to Ashley, as Ed mentioned earlier, and then she'll post it. We'll post it on our website because the main activity right now is to get people to pre-register. It could be a nightmare if they don't pre-register.
Right.
But it will be something I think they'll accept, but they're going to do a separate line for them, and that's going to be a long waiting line. It reminds me, Diane, of when we used to collect cathode ray tubes, and and unfortunately too, we may run out of vaccine. And if we do, we'll be putting a placard on the last car we can accept, and maybe we can do it again. But this is going to be excellent training for future vaccination clinics, especially when we have to set up a point of distribution or what we call emergency dispensing site once the COVID-19 vaccine is available, which will probably be dispersed, as Diane remembers, with H1N1 through a series of vaccination clinics. But again, we may be looking at drive-through, even though that could be, I'm hoping, winter. Again, I'm not going to predict when the vaccine will be ready for COVID-19. Okay, all set on that?
Yep, whenever you're ready, yep.
Okay, now we get technical to some degree. It's not difficult, but a little more technical. We had a well in town at an irrigation well, and it was up at Robert Hill Way, where they found some VOCs and other products in their water, and it brought that to the attention of various people. With that said, I went over these well regulations with management and reviewed the fact that always since I've been here, these defined all wells, both potable and domestic, as it says in our first, if you look at 312-1 definitions of a private water supply, it's the first sentence. Any water system serving or intended to service water for human consumption or domestic uses. So that leads you to the section on testing, and testing doesn't define it to be any different for domestic or potable water supplies. Testing starts on 312-5. In section B of 312-5, and the board has always wanted an irrigation well to have water as one say, hey, I'm on, guys. Well, I'm sorry, I had some background noise. They always wanted to make sure the water that they were drawing from, and if you look at the last sentence under B for sampling, it explains that they want to make sure the water conforms to established state and federal drinking water standards in the normal groundwater. So the concern obviously is, what are we drawing below? And is it whatever we're drawing, is it something that could have been erroneous or introduced to the water sample? Or is it something that could could be in the water supply. And we saw this at Cyrus Apartments, that we were very careful around Nyanza. And one second.
That's fine, Mark.
There's a background noise going on. I got to start.
That's fine. That's
Sorry,
okay, Mark.
sorry, guys. I just had to stop some background
No, I was
noise.
gonna say, if you need to take care of that, I was just gonna add.
No,
just-
no, it was just to stop some background noise.
Okay,
So that's the situation at hand. And then the other section is 6.2D, which talks about what cannot be completed until the board so approves it, such as irrigation wells and other types of wells. And the reason for those was to not disturb other people's water supplies. Because if someone put in a well that's taking out 30, 40, 50 gallons a minute, and the neighbor right next door is depending on their well, they could be drawing on their source. So those were the three areas I wanted just to bring up. And Diane, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just
No,
wanted to.
no, that's okay. No, I just want to, and I know we've talked about this, and I know this has been a recent discussion with us, but like when you look at the regulations though, like it talks about, it gives definitions, it talks about results, but nothing, there isn't anything in here that says that irrigation wells are part of these regulations. It says for the private water, drinking water, service water for human consumption or for domestic uses.
So that's a good point, Diane.
Irrigation is a domestic use. I think there is a word somewhere down there on the entire document. Irrigation is.
That's correct, KJ. If you go to 312-6D, it talks about wells for drinking water and domestic water supply shall not be used for water to supply for the following. So it defines them as not being used for those, but if you so wish to, for domestic purposes such as irrigation, that's where the board will make a decision if you can. It talks about heat pumps and irrigation wells and so forth.
That's from, 312.6 is prohibition though. That's not, so that's what I was confused about, because it's not like it's, and I think it just might be just a housekeeping issue for just clarification. I just
maybe defining domestic maybe to include all other wells would be what I would suggest, because I agree there, because there is some confusion. I agree with you.
And it's probably just I was thinking the same thing about the animal regulations. It's probably just time to just take a peek at it.
Yeah.
I'm just looking.
But that's what it was always considered. Domestic well was considered irrigation.
Okay.
We actually in Wilson Circle, the developer put in irrigation wells, even though they had
I was on mute.
water supply. So
Diane, you made a point. You hit like the magic word there for me. When I look at the very top of the history of this document, it hasn't really been looked at exhaustively in 20 years.
Right.
That's a long time
Right.
for a health-related document.
And I thought, and KG, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought you were going to take a peek and maybe have
Yes.
to work with Mark about, okay.
That's right.
And maybe that's just something that, that we work on is just taking a peek at these and just clarifying. Because again, somebody like myself in layman's terms, that didn't make sense, but I know it's been that way, Mark, because, looking at this document.
Sure.
So, and maybe we'll just, do a review, in a month or so and just bring them up to.
well, that's fine. And I oops, sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but a way that we can tag, when we look at something like this at 6 pages, it could be daunting, and how do we fit this into a meeting and stuff like that. But, if we were to commit to say one section per meeting over the next 7 or 8 weeks, we can bang this out, in a couple of months, which isn't so bad for a 20-year-old document.
Which is what you did with the tobacco regs. Like if you actually take them in this case, KG takes them and maybe just looks at it, just do a cursory overview. And then, like you said, and then we can digest them because it's
right. Bring out some points where we need some corrections done, and then the board can discuss and then rewrite whatever that portion needs to be.
Okay.
I would agree.
Yeah.
And
before we
go ahead. I was going to say, the board did look at them in 2010. That's when they signed them again. But again, it's not many changes. I think to expedite permitting was the reason they looked at it then. So they've been stable all these years, but I agree. Regulations after so many years should be looked at. I just Googled domestic well. I found something, Colorado domestic well. It's a broad definition of other uses besides drinking. So it's time to look at it. And KG, I heard you may be willing to help. So
sure.
I look forward to it.
Yeah, there are two things that related to this. One was the Robert Hill, the other one is the Cirrus Apartments.
Yes.
When we approved Citrus Apartment, they were supposed to give us the test results every season before they
Pre and
start
post.
and the
Yeah.
end of it.
And when you, at the
I
end,
don't know how many of them they have done it so far. So we need to make sure we keep tab of it, and we need to have a mechanism by which you get reminded of them not giving it or giving it. So you need to find some plan or some programming to do that.
They've been on notice twice this year, this summer.
Right.
And you just reminded me to put them back on notice because they say they're not using them this year, but I'm going to try to find out if I can get deeper
Okay,
into
that
it.
one.
Thank you, KG.
On the Robert Hill, when they came up here with the plan, there was a lot line in between. And according to the setback issues, it has to be, I believe, 10 feet from the lot line. Is that right? Or Mark, or 15 feet?
10 feet, that is
10
correct.
feet. And this
I'll
missed
double
that.
check, but that is correct.
It is correct, 10 feet. And then
Okay.
they did not clarify it when they came to our board that there is a lot line and they are only 4 feet away from that lot line. So they should have been much open in it what they wanted to do. If they needed a waiver, we should have granted a waiver if there was a need for it and if there was a possibility. So I don't know, how do we remedy this? And can we go back to them and then bring them back to the board and find out what happened?
I think that's appropriate.
Did we issue a permit for the well yet?
Yes.
I think they're already up and drilling. Is that right?
It's drilled. It's the one that had the water issues.
Yeah.
And I would think that would be appropriate. There was emails going back and forth to the assessor as well as to, I think the planner got involved, Pete got involved as well, related to, it wasn't a lot line, it was a lot line. It was just a dividing line. It's a parcel line. Now it went all around in circles and now it's back to maybe it is a lot line. Because
it is a lot line because there are two separate deeds.
Yeah,
there are two separate
Two
deeds.
lots there.
A deed means it has a bounded property, and then each deed has a bounded property means there are two of them. That's all.
So, I mean, at this point, it would be a formality that they asked for a waiver because they already have it installed.
I understand,
mean,
but
maybe
we need to find out why Mark was not aware of it if he did not know about this lot line.
Yep.
Because it was recommended here, it was brought up here, and it was not noticed by him because there was nothing there. I know that they had a discussion with the planning board on this one issue, so they should probably within the department need to talk to each other and get the information out for everybody.
The
engineer who drew up the plan, if I can, the engineer who drew up the plan didn't show a lot line.
Correct.
So the engineer should be put on.
Right, and also they cleverly marked those lots instead of lot 1 and lot 2, they did phase 1 and phase 2.
Yes, that is correct.
So wording also misled that one.
So why don't we see, Mark, maybe if we can get them on the next agenda to request for waiver and obviously to provide you with the accurate documents, I should say.
And I have been keeping that engineer in line with what's happening, so he'll be aware now that the board needs to review it.
Incidentally, I believe the town does have a promissory note on that piece of the land where that well is. Well is being on the other lot than on the lot where it is required. I think you're
Those
also
properties
requiring
have-
the well to be on the same lot, isn't it? Mark?
What's that, KG?
The well has to be on the same lot as the property where it's serving. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe they were planning to service Robert Hill Way, but if they're servicing both lots, that'll need to be addressed too, so we can ask them that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, KG, you can tell I'm getting tired. KG, the both lots have been transferred at this point.
The deed is in their name. I understand. The
Okay.
promissory note is still standing out there. We don't know yet. So
All right, well, you know me, at 8 o'clock, I turn into a pumpkin.
you have
All
1
right.
minute, so we'll zip through it.
I know.
So is it something, maybe we could bring this up, Diane. I think really looking at the rest of the agenda, and not to minimize the importance of anything else, but probably in terms of business that really has to be done is probably reviewing the August 4th minutes. Everything else, I think we can, if we made a decision as a board, opt to move to the next meeting.
Sure.
Well, with that said, I'm glad you got just kind of to get off a little bit of the topic, but last week, Mark, Laura, and myself had a Zoom meeting or a Google Meet meeting to just talk about the agenda, make sure we're all on the same page. And I think it was very healthy to have that meeting. What I also was thinking for the agenda is, because our agendas are getting busy, is that we could do like the select board does, is we can put like a consent, and we can list items that don't necessarily have to be discussed, but it's a notification.
Right.
And then we can list whatever, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but maybe we try that. So like you said, the things that the board needs to be made aware of, we'll just move that consent agenda instead of talking about each subject. So maybe we'll try that in the future. So
I mean,
if anybody's good with that, we'll just take a peek at the minutes and make sure everybody's all set, and then we'll move everything else for the next agenda. Is everybody in agreement?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
I move
second
to
that.
accept the minutes of August 4th, 2020.
Second.
Yeah, that's right.
Hey, did you have a question?
No.
Okay,
don't.
all right. Any questions? All in favor?
Hi, KG.
Hey, Chris.
Hi, Diane. Okay.
I really
Diane,
think-
I just had one comment or question. We don't need to discuss this now, but just as far as waivers and things like that are concerned, especially with this well that now we have to potentially grant a waiver for, and I'm not, I'm not concerned about the chicken coop thing, but it seems like we're granting waivers to people who just do what they want to do, regardless of regulations that are in place. How do we make people more aware of the regulations? Because now if somebody else does it, they're going to say, well, you know what? I'm going to do what they did. I'm just going to build what I want to build and ask for forgiveness later rather than following the regulations. How do
Good
we
point.
do that as a whole? I don't know what the answer is. That's why
there is one way to do it for this, guys, is to ask them to carve out a 10-foot radius semicircle and attach it to the other lot.
Well,
I mean, it just seems like,
I can.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't
we
know.
can
what
address-
That's
we
the
can-
ideal one. You just have to draw a 10-foot radius semicircle from that well.
So
and
KG,
ask
just
them to,
my understanding, and Mark, I think you and I dealt with this a few times in the past, is that you cannot grant yourself an easement. So
correct.
if there's an owner of two parcels, they can't grant it. So that's an exception. But I think in general, like for the animal ones, my opinion, and I actually was thinking about this because Susan was very apologetic that she didn't know, that maybe we start doing the, public service announcements, and say, let's say maybe March, for someone who's maybe thinking about getting animals or things like that, just to remind people, because, I would hope that people don't do those things intentionally,
Diane, in this case, there are two separate deeds. So one deed can give the easement to the other, but easements don't allow this well. It has to be a transfer of property. So they need to carve out that area and attach it to the other one.
Well,
and then buy it. That's what you can penalize if you want that way.
Why doesn't Mark get all the information of where they're at? And if there's something like that Mark thinks is appropriate, he can talk to council. So when they come here, when we have the meeting before the, for the agenda, we'll make sure we have all the information that we need, as well as a recommendation from council, and she'll just let us know where we should go with that.
Okay.
Or they can move the well, right?
I'm sorry?
Or they can move the well.
Oh, they've already dug the well, so they have to shut it and then put it a different place.
Right. That would be very punitive, Judy. Yeah, I agree with you.
Correct.
If they had to move it.
Right.
Plus it's a hole in the ground already. I mean, I don't think that's, I think if I understand, it's not really politically correct to have a hole and then dig, have another one. I mean, but
right.
Yeah, I agree.
No, I'm sure you're right too.
It does bother me with the well that, there's engineers involved with this large project. Of course, they're being, the project's being scrutinized, that how do you just install a well 4 feet from the property line?
If they're being sneaky, that's bad.
Right. Exactly. That's all I'm saying, KG.
I understand.
Those regulations are in place.
I totally agree with you, because I never even looked at it at the beginning, but I was notified that this is what's happening. Then when I dug deep into it, I found this is what's happening.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
Or maybe, maybe it's just incompetence. So.
Well, I wouldn't say it's incompetence, because the communication that I've received shows that they have had a discussion on this one before.
Well, yeah. I don't want to put the cart before the horse. I mean, I don't know
understand.
all the facts behind this one, like, but But again, back to the point is though it is true that like we want to educate people so people don't have to ask for variance. So maybe we work on that
Right.
stuff about doing announcements during certain times of the year, so people know. Because I mean, whether it's now or in the past or in the future, we probably all know somebody who had chickens. And I didn't know I had to have a permit.
I didn't.
Like,
Right, so-
to mimic what Ron said, if most of them are getting waiver, then we need to change the regulation. That's all.
Right.
So,
Well,
you know,
I
Diane,
think that's another regulation that we should look at and review, because the same thing, it may be out of date. We might want to add things, delete things, or just change things. So
I think you make a really good point, and the town manager sends out a weekly newsletter. You could do fun facts on the bottom every week. Did you know you need a permit for a horse? Do you know you need a permit for your chicken coop? Do you know? I mean,
Chicken coop has to be 25 feet from your house.
Right.
or question of the week: how far would your chicken coop have to be from your house? You know what I mean?
we'll make it fun, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I found out that type of thing when I was going to try to build a shed, but we're right in front of a wetlands, and I couldn't be 25 feet away from my property line, nor was I far enough away from the wetland. So but I didn't do it, and then say, well, I just did it. Give me a waiver. I didn't do it because, but I had to go to
You're a
City
good
Hall
boy, Ron.
And well, you try to do the right thing.
He
saw me in the wetland area. That's why he did.
Right. I knew KG would.
You don't want to deal with KG.
So. Yeah, no kidding. Does everybody have their calendars available? Do we think we want to meet again in September? We want to meet the 29th or?
Fine.
Yeah, because I'd love to hear about the medical reserve code. We didn't get to that, so.
So you want to meet the 29th at 6 p.m.? Is everybody good the 29th?
Sure.
I could do that.
Mark? Orem?
Yeah, I'm okay, but then when do you want to meet in October? Because you would have 2 in a row.
Yeah, true.
I mean,
that's
I
fine.
can give you a quick update on the MRC if you'd like.
I want to go to bed.
Okay.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, Mark, to Steve, I mean, I have to say that the good thing is we have a few new members that are sent through the system, which is the good news. So, yeah, Mark, I agree with you, because then what the meetings, we would be meeting the 6th and the 20th.
I think the 6th would be better than meeting the 13th, because the 13th would be right after a holiday.
Yeah, and I think we just have to keep to that consistency too for everyone involved, not just for us on the board, but for the public who follows us and for the other boards too. We say we're going to meet the 1st and the 3rd Tuesdays. I think that unless there was a special circumstance that absolutely had to be taken care of, an emergency circumstance, and
why don't we do the 6th then, the next one?
Yeah, we'll do the 6th then, if that works. We'll go back to the 6th. We'll do the 6th and the 20th next month.
And I promise that if the MRC is listed on their duty, that I won't ask for it to be moved to the next meeting.
Well, like I said, what I'll try to do with Mark is just put some consent, like, for example, the budget. The budget space, if we can do a consent, everybody sees it, you have the documentation.
Exactly.
And if somebody wants to talk about something, of course, we can pull it up, but maybe we'll just try to list items that are just notification and then move on.
That's a great idea.
And I got my point across about the nursing side of the budget line.
Yeah.
The other point I was going to just make quickly is one item that shouldn't be in there should have been an FY20. It's just a matter of a logistical issue with finance that it will be resolved by the next budget.
Yeah, and Mark, I mean, you're privy to the stuff that's going on the agenda anyway. So if there's something that's getting tossed into a consent agenda item that you think needs discussion, you can always just touch base with Diane and move it off and have it a discussion item.
And I'm also, again, I was just thinking the same thing, even on the agenda, maybe we'll change it to be scheduled appointments, like who's actually scheduled to appear, just so it's clear. I know, just a little bit clear. So maybe I'll work with Mark and Laura about just cleaning up the agenda for the next meeting.
All right, if everybody is set for that,
do it.
I move that we adjourn the meeting for today.
Second.
3rd.
All in favor?
Hi, KG.
At 8:10 p.m.
Yeah.
All right, good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.